Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Alto Call, a Married at First Sight podcast. The season is over, but the episodes are still going on here. And today I have a guest with me, a guest who is a first time MAFS watcher. And I just thought it would be fun to do a season recap through the lens of someone who is watching this for the first time. And my guest is Sam. And he's interesting because he has a podcast with his ex wife. So
That's
this
right.
is going to be really good. It's called Sam and Jen Got Divorced. But hi, Sam. How are you?
Hey, I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for joining me. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation. First of all, you got me when you said you were a Madison Stan. Yes, guys. So you might hear some not unpopular opinions. I don't want to call it that, but it's just opinions that are counterbalancing maybe things that you've heard from the MAPS community and all that. But before we go into that, let me just remind you guys out there that the episodes will be coming in. Stay subscribed. It might not be every week, but I'll try to have something out. And if you still want to get some episodes, the Patreon is still up, patreon.com/altocall MAFS. I will be covering other shows other than MAFS. I have gotten a request for season 9, which I am contemplating. So again, if there's anything that you want me to cover, it might be just a reunion where I cover all the spots or any other shows. Just, you know where to find me, hit me up, and we'll put it under consideration. Okay, back to the show, Sam. You got to tell me, how did you get into MAFS?
Right now I'm in Edmonton, and I just moved to Edmonton about 6 months ago, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Okay.
And we are in a unique situation for the first time in decades where myself, my sister, and my parents are all living in the same house.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a really special time, right? I'm a grown ass man, so it's not something that I thought I'd ever experience, but
Yeah.
here we are. And my sister, like myself, is a big reality TV aficionado. So I was just
Mm-hmm.
walking by the living room one day, and both of us love Love Is Blind, and she was watching Married at First Sight. And my mom is one of those like immigrant moms where she'll be like, "What are you watching? Turn this nonsense off." And then 20 minutes later, she'll come by and she'll be like, "Okay, rewind that, pause that. Let's see that one more time." So it turned out that my sister actually fell off of the season too early because it was kind of
Mm.
boring, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, early on the season. But my mom and
Mm-hmm.
I kept watching, and yeah, it's just one of the things we do to spend time together, which I'm really grateful for.
Ah, so that's interesting. There's a couple of things. Okay, where did you move from? Was it away from Canada or within Canada to Edmonton?
That is a great and complex question. So for the last 5 years, I have been largely location independent. So
Okay.
be it for work or for business or for pleasure, I've lived in Mexico. I've lived in Europe for a bit. I lived in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. Toronto has often been my base. That's where I
Mm-hmm.
grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I feel the most home, arguably. So most recently, I was in Toronto. But whenever somebody asks me where I came from, it
Yeah.
just depends on what year it is, what month it is. That's kind of been my life for the last 5 years.
Oh, okay. So this is more interesting because you did say you were a Madison Stan, and you did say that you, for the first time, found yourself in a situation where you were living with your mom, your sister, which brings to mind David. So that's something we're going to get into. But I think we should go all the way back to your podcast because I feel like where your lens comes in is you're going to be talking from the lens of a first time watcher, from the lens of someone who's gone through a divorce, from the lens of a man, from the lens of an immigrant. So there's so many layers in which you've watched this show for the first time. So any questions you have about the show beyond, I'm happy to answer and we'll dive into that. But how did you come about this podcast with your ex-wife? And from the few episodes, you guys didn't speak for a long time and then came about, and then you married early, and there were some things you had to work through. Sam, how can
Yeah,
you fit this in? Give us a high level summary of all of these things that I just mentioned.
sure. So my ex-wife and I were in the same friend circle for about 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and when I developed feelings first, she initially wasn't interested, and then something changed, and she was, and we had basically a whirlwind romance, and it got to the point where we were talking about, okay, what's our plan? Where are we going with this? Right? We were both Christian, we were both mission oriented,
Mm-hmm.
and when we had that conversation, her response was, well, I'll marry you tomorrow, which I thought was so romantic and so
Uh,
sweet. And I was like, I'm busy tomorrow, but maybe how 7 months from now. So 7 months later, after dating for, let's say, for weeks, not months, we were married, and that was really challenging because neither of us had a lot of dating experience or even life experience, and being married was a lot harder on both me and her than we expected. Um, I was struggling at that time with addiction, and there was a lot of I was living a double life basically, as I talk about on my podcast. So that led to a relatively quick separation after 1 year, a divorce after 3 years, and my journey since has been one of healing, ups and downs, wins and losses, like I think a lot of people, especially people who have struggled with addiction.
Mm-hmm.
But um, we never lost that desire to impact people, which was one of the things that drew us together. And so in recent years, I've been more and more leaning into that as I've kind of gotten healthier and started dreaming again. And I saw that she was doing the same on social media. We didn't talk in person. We didn't talk at all. But her social media presence was becoming more vulnerable and more transparent about things like divorce, things like her career. She's a psychotherapist now. When we were together, that was one of the things that she was studying. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess how this podcast came about is I reached out to her one day, not to start a podcast, but just to say, hey, we're both becoming more and more public facing. Is there anything that I shouldn't say or that would make you feel disrespected? And she appreciated that I asked that. And it turned into a conversation about me coming on her podcast,
Mm-hmm.
which is an ongoing podcast. And then I thought about it and I thought, you know what? I'm also looking to build a podcast. I think if we were able to do this together or do something together, we could have even more impact because usually exes don't talk, or there's a lot of toxicity in ex relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of vulnerability that both of us have in baked into our personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think my thought process was we can help even more people together than we would separately. And she thought about it. She took a few weeks to think about it, consider it, and then we said let's try it. And now we're a year later, and there's been some ups and downs, but it's going honestly better than I expected.
Oh, that's good. Do you find that you're getting some kind of healing, even more healing by going through this with her, or does it dredge up some more memories, or both?
Probably both, but I
Mm-hmm.
think definitely more healing. There's some things I didn't understand about how she was feeling and thinking, and the process that she's been through since. I think so. A lot of closure, a lot of clarity is coming for both of us, I would say. Yeah, sometimes it's difficult or emotional because it's also a reminder of why we got married in the first place, right? Some things, we just understand about each other and about what we want out of life. So,
Mm-hmm.
but it helps to understand like why the divorce happened and where we were then and where we are now. It's cool to kind of come for full circle in that sense.
Definitely very unique. And guys, if you want to get more, we're going to share at the end of the episode where you can find Sam's podcast, but you can get all the episodes. I think there are about 14, 15 episodes up right now. And they work their way up from the beginning up until where they are, right now and cover all that topic. So, okay, going straight into MAFS, what are some parallels in your marriage that you see with the show? Or what are the things that resonate the most with you with this show in your life?
Ooh, I like it. I feel like I see myself in every cast member and every couple, honestly. Like you alluded to David, so like
Yeah.
I've been an entrepreneur a lot of my life, and I've struggled with addiction and other things as well. So I've had
Mhm.
many episodes of moving back in with my parents as an adult.
Mhm.
I have so I related to David on that level. I also have been Juan, and I've been extremely driven and extremely goofy. So I related to Juan in that sense. Um, yeah, I've been dishonest to partners in the way that David and Madison were. I've been
Yeah.
the partner who was, or I've been somebody who was kind of innocent to what was happening, and not like Alan arguably was.
Yeah. Mhm.
I've been Carla with my head in the stars, right? And I've been
Mhm.
Camille and Alan, just observing the drama from the outside. um,
Thomas, but I'm
also
waiting.
Thomas.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Ikechi part
Oh,
to
I mean,
see
for
if
sure.
he.
Have I been toxic? For sure. Have I said cruel
Okay.
things and been reactive? 100%, right? Have I
Yeah.
been and been spiteful and petty because somebody else was cruel to me?
Yeah.
100%. I've been everybody.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, what in this situation, in the situations where you find yourself living with your parents, would you still are you such a romantic that you would still, apply for a show and be like, what are the chances? Or are you like, no, I wouldn't want to still be living with my parents and go marry somebody? Where do you stand on that spectrum?
Really good question. I see both sides. I think that a reality TV show, you never know what's going to happen, right? You could meet the love of your life, and I would never want to block a blessing, as they say. So I know that my current situation is not a reflective of my potential or even my past. Like as a married man, I was the breadwinner, the primary breadwinner, right? Who helped put my wife at the time through college. So somebody could look at me right now and say he's living with his parents and his sister. Is this a man who's a worthy husband? And I would say where I am right now is not an indicator of what you'll get, but maybe not, right? For you, maybe
Mm-hmm.
you're looking for somebody who has X amount of assets or sees life through X lens or doesn't have the same combination of strengths and weaknesses that I do, and I would say that's fair too. But
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't put every single woman in that category, which is why I would go on the show to see that maybe the person they match me with would be able to see beyond my current state.
Okay. Is that partly why you're a Madison fan? Because she was able to see beyond that, or it's completely different reasons?
I was shocked that Madison and David lasted as long as they did. To be completely honest with you, as David would say, to be completely honest with you about everything when he's never honest,
No, that's
he's
about
honest 25%
it.
of the time.
Okay. All right. So let me see. Let's just start. We're already there. So let's just go with David Madison, Alan Michelle of it all. What is your overall everything opinions, and what is it about Madison that you're okay with, where everyone's like, you shouldn't have done that? What is your overall summary of that foursome in general?
So I think the way that I relate to Madison, what maybe stirred some empathy in me for
Mm-hmm.
Madison at the beginning, before the whole David and Madison drama played out, was that Madison seemed like a bit of like she wasn't always attractive or desirable as a woman. She has put in a lot of work into I think many elements of her life. Right, she seems successful career wise, um, and I think that I can experience. I know what that's like, having had a bit of a glow up myself,
Mm-hmm.
and having had the feelings of disappointment that I felt like no woman would necessarily want me or see me for who I was. They would just
Mm-hmm.
look at the surface things, um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that what Madison was experiencing to a degree with Alan was she genuinely wasn't attracted to him, but she
Mm-hmm.
was trying to tell herself that given enough time, given enough stimulus, that could change, because she didn't want to think of herself as somebody who was shallow enough to dismiss somebody based on his teeth or based on his,
Mm-hmm. Just
swag.
not looking like a pretty boy. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. Like she's used to, for however many years, she's used to, these gym guys approaching her and dating the quote unquote hottest guys, because now that's how she presents as well. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was where my empathy for Madison started. I also thought that, so Alan felt like he was being misled or betrayed. I don't think that was the case, even to this day. I think,
Really?
yeah,
Okay, I'm listening. I'm listening.
I think she was trying. I think she was like, maybe I'll get there given enough time, right? I like, I don't think the relationship with David. Who knows when things shifted from platonic to romantic, but I do think initially it was probably just a confidant relationship where they were like, "Yo, I don't. Our spouses are whack, but we're trying something. Maybe things will change." And I don't know that David felt that way, but I think Madison, the impression I got was that Madison was open to that, to experiencing a different feeling than she did initially. And I think maybe
Okay.
she gave up at some point, and at that point, I think it would have been right to say something to Alan, but I
Yeah.
don't know if she even knew that she was giving up until the very end. So
Well, I mean, my argument for that is we never got it from their mouths when they started, but we
yeah,
can get it was the early weeks. It's gone from week 1 to week 3, but it was early. We can guarantee that. And I just feel like she's saying she's trying. I've been shitting on her all season saying she's trying, but you can't try when your heart is with someone else. That's just, I don't see how the two are. She wanted it to, I agree with you that she wanted to feel different, but it just wasn't there. And she never actually told Alan. That's just, she never actually did. Even at the retreat, when she found out, she still didn't. David was the one who did. So that's my beef with Madison, and she said it. I wasn't brave enough to say it. I wasn't going to do it. That's the thing for me with them.
yeah. Having David tell Alan, that was some nonsense. Honestly, that was. ridiculous. But what I do think happened, and this has happened to me, right? I think I have generally fallen in love from a place of friendship first, or it's something
Mhm.
that's grown up with time. So
Mhm.
I think that what's possible, I don't know, I'm not in Madison's head, but
Yeah.
from initially with David, it was, this is an attractive guy who I can talk to about whatever. It's comfortable. We have an easy rapport. But I think there was a progression from platonic to romantic. And sometimes you yourself don't even know when that happens, right? There's a
Mhm.
scenario where, on the honeymoon, they were screwing around. But there's a scenario where they were initially just comfortable with each other. And then as time passed by, she got to the place where she was like, oh man, these are actual romantic feelings, not just like my buddy who I can talk about with anything with. And I
Yeah.
think that point could have happened close to the couple's retreat, or it could have happened much earlier than they said. But for some reason, I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt because it's very feasible that that she was just in her mind. This was just a friend, and she was lying to herself because she was gaslighting herself and telling herself that you know one day maybe those feelings will spark for Alan.
Okay. So let's say we say that for Madison, but for David, do you think that's the case? This is someone who we already know is obsessed with blonde women. And he said it from the minute I saw her in the honeymoon. I just thought, I wish she was the one walking down the aisle. Do we think his was a case of friendship, or it was just, I see blonde women and go? That's it. That's all I want. Like, what do you think is the case for David?
I think David's journey was he got a blonde woman who he was attracted to at first, so he
Hmm.
was happy. But then she was judgmental as heck towards him, and then eventually he gave up. The timeline of when he gave up, I think, was sooner than when he let it on camera. I think he was trying to put on a good face. He's walking down the street with selfies. He's like, "Today's a beautiful day." I'm like, "Yes." All right, you're like David is fake as heck. So I think that for him, there was some time when he was just like, man, this girl is wild. Like the way she's talking to me, I'm not going to be with no woman who's talking to me like that. She's never going to love me. This is a waste of my time. But I'm on a TV show, so let me thug it out. And then he's like, "Ooh, Madison, she's telling me about the problems in her marriage. I think we got
Hmm.
a bit of a vibe, And he transitioned much quicker than perhaps Madison did. Yeah.
Okay. So you said you were surprised that David and Madison are still together. Why? You thought they were going to break up, and why did you think they'll break up?
Yeah, the reason I thought that they would break up is because I think that when I thought what Madison wanted was like she said she wanted a white guy, right? Or I mean, she didn't say it in so many words, but she
Yeah.
yeah, the clip that they showed, she was like, yeah, I don't know how I'd feel about being with somebody who wasn't white and being married to that. So I thought, like a lot of people, and black people do this too. People of lots of different cultures do this too. They'll date around, they'll have fun with somebody outside of their desired race or
Culture.
partnership.
Hmm.
But when
Hmm.
it finally comes time to make that commitment, it's harder for
Hmm.
them to actually get there because it doesn't align with the way they see their life.
Yeah. So giving grace, because again, I was also hard on her when she said that. Is it a case of I mean, I think it still deserves maybe just a slight pat on the on the hand, but married at first sight when I don't know the person, yeah, I'm just gonna stay safe, even though it shouldn't matter. But in David's case, it was like, well, I got to know him. Like I can be with a non-white person as long as I get to know them. But if I don't get to know them, then I'm just sticking with white. So yeah, I'm still giving her a hard time because what does that imply or what does that mean? And you're not wrong. As I say all the time, I'm Nigerian, and that is pretty common where people date other people and then at the end they want to be with someone who understands their culture, understands that. But it was just a weird thing to say. Like I would marry anyone at first sight, but I just wouldn't marry not a non-white person. So that was my only, thing about her. Okay. So that was David. But we didn't mention, how do you relate to Michelle?
Ooh, she's the one I relate to the least,
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Michelle, it's hard for me with Michelle because she has a mouth on her, and I think that's the only way. If I'm
Okay.
pushed, I'm very diligent about not using my mouth, but I can get there.
You can get there. Okay. So how did you feel about Alan? Like the whole, do you think he was really embarrassed? Do you think he had feelings for Madison? Do you think he also experienced that whole thing of Madison is probably, even though I didn't get that Madison is like, oh, the hottest, girl that I've ever dated. So I have to keep her, because I personally think that Alan has self-confidence and he's comfortable in who he is. Is that the same impression that you get about Alan?
I mean, yes or no. I think there's there's levels. Like I remember talking to one of my colleagues, right? She was from Venezuela. Everything's all put together. She's objectively gorgeous, and she was like, "Yeah, I was at the bar the other night, and these guys came up and talked to me and my friends, and I was just like, these guys got to know their levels. Like, why are they talking to us?" And I thought that was extremely stuck up to say, but I also think that this rating system, some people are 10, some people are fives, is subconsciously in many people's minds. I think Alan, again, he, I think he's attractive and confident for what he is, but if he's talking to somebody who he maybe ranks on the same level as him from an attractiveness scale, and again, it's internal, right? So
Hmm.
I think like if he was talking to somebody he thought was maybe an eight, then the way he'd come out, he'd approach it with a lot more confidence. But Madison, he thought was a 10, right, based on her
Hmm.
aesthetic choices and etc. So
Hmm.
I think from him, she was out of his league, and I think that played into the dynamic. And I think she also felt like she was out of his league physically speaking. So
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else on them that stuck out to you that you want to talk about before we move on to Ikechi?
I've just also been Ellen. I've been the guy who, the nice, friendly guy who got, shafted because I didn't have the swagger or whatever else people were looking for. So I feel for Alan. It's not a nice situation on TV to be played out like that way. But as you've said on this podcast, I'm sure the people are lining up for him right now.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine. He's had two girlfriends. Like we haven't even met
Right.
the first one. So yeah, he had a girlfriend, and he said the one that was shown at the reunion is not who he's with now. But
Hmm.
he hasn't revealed who she is, so he's fine. He's doing okay.
And you said you looked into it. His girlfriend at the reunion was not black, right? Because I had the same
No,
questions you.
no, she's not,
Okay.
and neither is the current one. I think.
Maybe he'll get
So
there, right? Maybe he'll
yeah.
level up.
We'll see. Okay. So let's move on to Ikechi and MM. You had said that you think that Pastor Cal and the experts seem to consistently gaslight the contestants. Well, I laughed when you called them the contestants because I don't know. Is it The Bachelor? Is it Married at First Sight? In order to make the show seem more legitimate. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I called them contestants because this is a love experiment, but it's mostly a show. Talking to my sister, I was like, "Would you ever be on one of these shows?" And she's like, "No." And she's an amazing woman who wants to find love, but she
Yeah.
doesn't want to be on TV. So
Yeah.
to be on
Yeah.
one of these shows, you have to want to find love, A, but also B, and maybe A, you want to be on TV as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't really fault people for the wrong reasons or anything like that. Like I see the duality, and I think it's
Yeah.
fine. But I do think that everybody on the show is looking to protect their own interests, and the people who are the
Mm,
best at that are the producers of the show.
mm.
So when the experts are talking, I don't listen with the lens of they're looking to help people or they're looking to get the best possible solution. I listen with the lens of how does what they're saying um, con-
Support.
convert into data or convert into
Mhm.
content that's going to give this show more seasons moving forward.
Oh, yeah, I see that. But do you have an example off the top of your head of when they were gaslighting one of them, the contestants, as you call them,
Yeah,
into making the show seem more legitimate? Like any of the couples stand out from the season?
sure. So I think that Um, working with working with MM and Ikechi,
Hmm.
I saw that they were not really holding Ikechi's feet to the fire like they should have, based on how abusive he was. Right?
Mm,
I don't think. I think the marriage. A real therapist might have said, "Run," or like for your own emotional health or safety,
yeah,
you can't continue in this situation. But
yeah,
they were trying to ask Ikechi, well, do you want to make this work? What MM, like, what can you do better? And I think
yeah,
there's a place for that in genuine relationships, right? There's a place for mutual accountability for sure. I'm a big proponent of that. But the way that they seemed like they were trying to tease out their relationship longer and push for the potential of a successful relationship when really MM was being severely mistreated. Like there's no way that they should have moved back in with
encouraged.
each other. The only
Hmm.
reason that they should have moved back within each other is for TV content. But otherwise, like Ikechi needed some serious corrective therapy so that things didn't get worse, like things didn't get more emotionally or possibly physically harmful, is how I saw it.
Yeah. And I know this is your first time watching, but we have had a case that I personally think was worse. I mean, Now that I think about it, I don't know what do you guys think, the listeners? Ikechi accusing of SA, pretty much like saying like she touched me when I didn't want to be touched. Is that worse than, to me, Chris and Paige? I don't know if you've heard of that season. It's Atlanta, where he got his girlfriend before he came on the show pregnant, told the girl on the show that he got her pregnant, was buying her a car without telling her, was having sex with her while saying he's not attracted to her. It was bad, and they never really quite told her to leave. I think it was one of the times where I got so mad, and I think I might have tweeted Pascal, and I think he responded. I'm not sure, or he just had it, and he said, "We can't tell people on the show what to do." So I think I can relate that to what you're saying, where it's like they're adults, they can stay, but at the end of the day, I think you're right. Their interest is in the show and they have to keep this going. But I do think they should have separated them. But what I find confusing is there have been seasons where they have just brought people, even as recent as 2 seasons ago, and said, is this the end? Do you want to divorce or do you want to go your separate ways? Are you done? They have done that for less incidents. So that's where I get confused on that. And also maybe nostalgia. Like, Pascal is like a nice uncle. Like, would he
Mhm.
ever be deceptive with us and all? So yeah, so that's, you're right on that end. But you think that they were harder on Ikechi than they were on David, right?
No, the opposite. I think they were harder on David than they were
On
on
David,
Akechi.
sorry. Yes, they were harder on David. Why do you think that is?
Optics. I think
Oh.
that David betrayed Michelle and Alan. I think that David made it seem like everything was okay. Like he misled both Michelle and the experts into thinking, this is a tough situation, but I'm smiling through it. I have
Hmm.
faith. Whereas
Yeah.
not, his actual outlook was, screw Alan, his wife. I'm gonna dirty text her wife. Screw Michelle. I'm just gonna smile in her face, but I have no hope here.
Hmm.
And screw these experts. I'm gonna say that I'm keep on keeping on when actually I've given up. So I think they rightfully were harder on, not rightfully, they should have been harder on Akechi, but they were sufficiently hard on David, and maybe could have been harder.
Yeah. So what do you think about and her engagement and all that? Do you think anything of it? I did have a guest last week who was a former participant, and it gave me perspective when they were like, listen, the 8 weeks, it's already broken down before the 8 weeks. So they've already said their breather right there. And I think a listener reminded me, like, listen, that 8 weeks, they don't think of it as an actual marriage. And I have other people actually say that, where I'm looking at it like, hey, it's a legitimate marriage. They need to, honor their vows and all that. As a first time watcher, do you think that they don't view this as a marriage? They just view it as an experiment.
Yeah, I think if I was to hazard a guess, everybody except for viewed it as an experiment, and
Mm,
viewed it as a marriage, or at least the closest to it out of anybody who was there. I think
okay.
that, yeah, I don't think I think they all think that if I'm not attracted to this person, or if I don't like them, I can be out, and at least I'll be out with some more followers or some more opportunities or a cool experience that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Which is the funniest thing to me, because we always say MAFS is not the show to come for clout. Like, it just goes after the season's done, everyone's just done. It's on Lifetime. No one cares anymore. There's not a lot of crossover. We don't see these people again except on their Instagram. So it's very interesting.
I mean, I hear that perspective and I agree. I was surprised. I'm like, only 6,000 followers after being on this show, right? I didn't
Hmm.
realize that. I do think the
Yeah.
flip side is it does give you other opportunities, whether it be for other reality show or appearances, brand deals. Like, it is a step forward. And I'm sure we'll get to one, but I think that's the way one especially was thinking, because everything is a building block to where you ultimately want to go, right? So I think even if this one show isn't getting you $100,000 brand deal, it's still increasing your public profile in a way that maybe is meaningful to you.
Yes, it increases their public profiles and some of the people, but it's mostly the married, the people that stay successful, that are
Okay.
able to translate it. But I promise, in 18 seasons, we have not seen a MAFS participant in another reality show. And that always blows my mind. None. Like,
Okay.
not even, like, it's not going to be, but now it's going to change. Maybe when they move to, Peacock, Traders is on there. There's going to be crossovers and things like that. But it's the craziest thing. Like, even the audience for Love is Blind don't always cross over to Married at First Sight. You would think that people who watch Love is Blind automatically watch Married at First Sight, and that is not the case at all. Do you have any thoughts on MM's new fiance, committed partner, and all that, Brandon? Or
I think the same thoughts that everyone else has, which are where did this guy come from? Why is he moving so quickly? Here's
yeah,
another guy who's on his he was on his ex-wife's couch, I think, or his sister's couch,
his
was it?
sister's couch. Yeah, yeah, his
Yeah,
sister's couch.
yeah. Again, I don't judge people too harshly for their living situations, but it seemed very quick. Everything and the story that they told us on the show seemed different than the actual story. Like he's asking all kind of
Yeah,
questions that I'm sure he knew the answer to. Did
yeah,
they meet? Like, did they reconnect on social media? Did they reconnect through a
the
mutual friend?
blind
Like,
date.
what's happening here?
Mm-hmm.
So it really seemed very scripted. I don't know how much of that is Mav's fault. Like MAFS, it seems like there's
Yeah.
an agreement between MAFS and Brandon to about chase together, essentially. Now, does that
Funny.
mean that MM is not in love? Does that mean it's not going to work out? No,
Yeah.
but this is it seems very scripted.
Yeah, and I think the commitment ceremony, I thought about this afterwards. Like, yes, I think it was a way to get all of them together, but it was kind of sus that the friend who was so outspoken was not there. Her cousin Rafiu was not there, and it's just how can we
All right.
have that? Rafiu has been there from the very beginning. So, yeah. Do you think Ikechi was ready for this? What do you think Ikechi's motive was for coming on the show?
I think he probably the same two motives. One, he wanted to find love. Two, he wanted to increase his brand and his profile. He does a lot of things that are public facing. He writes books. He
Yeah.
plays music. But I think he wanted to find love. I don't really, as somebody who got married and found out that I wasn't as ready as I thought, and I think my ex-wife would say the same thing about herself, right? Like um, I think it's very common to start something and then realize you're not as prepared for it as you thought you would be. So I don't really fault him too much. He's, yeah, I think we only know where we're at when we start doing something. So
I think the only difference, Sam, though, is how old were you when you got married? You were young.
I was 27.
Yeah, Ikechi is 42. So that's my only thing with him. But I think there's the other layer of the cameras. That's a whole different layer when you think you're ready and not. But I hope he's learned from it because he just absolutely didn't seem ready in any way. There was just a switch from the honeymoon to when they came back. So,
Yeah, what I think happened with Ikechi is he's an attractive guy, as you've so well pointed out many times on episodes of this
don't
podcast.
remind them, Sam. Don't remind them I said that.
He's got that Nigerian swag, and he sometimes he dresses well, and he's well spoken, intelligent. He appeared to be emotionally intelligent at first, right? Like
Hmm.
I was shocked. Like he did a 180 in my view, right? He
Yeah.
seemed like a good guy. What I think happened was he has never had the opportunity to reflect on why his relationships have not worked.
Mm.
Right? He hasn't
Hmm.
like when like this a variation of this has probably happened 50 times between ages 20 and 42.
Mm.
But nobody like he has his own narrative in his head about what's happening.
Yeah.
So he thinks the problem is them every time, when the
Yes.
problem has almost certainly been him every time, if not most times. So this show hopefully has given him the opportunity to actually see himself in person. Hopefully, he's given his family and friends the opportunity to be like, "Yo, bro, this is how you've been moving with your girls like the whole time. This is no wonder you're still single." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I really hope that's the conversation that he's having with himself and other people are having with him now, because I just think you never really like when my friends break up, I don't all I know is the narrative that they tell me. I don't know actually what
Yeah.
happened. So
Yeah. That's true. And I hope he has learned because the only takeaway I took from the Where Are They Now episode was like he just seemed surprised that they wanted to be friends with him and they did what friends do, like support. That was so surprising to him that I'm like, what besides his romantic life, what is his, friendship, platonic friendship like? He just seemed taken aback that these people who saw him at his worst were still willing to support him. So I hope he knows that he can just relax and just let good into his life. So,
yeah. The only other thing, if I can just add one more thing about
yeah,
Ikechi,
of course.
I relate to him as I'm an artist. I went to school for music. I'm very creative, and I think he loved that he was art and she was science. But practically speaking, I just think his communication skills around sensitive topics are not great at all. And I
Yeah.
think that's like I have a little bit of compassion for him there. Like he probably expresses things. He'll pull up his bass and play for hours, or he'll draw something for hours. And I think that like I think part of why he was so surprised to have friends who he could connect with the way that he did is because he's probably gotten lost in his artistic pursuits when he needed an
Mhm.
outlet, when he needed something to feel heard or seen. And
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of value in that. You also need to be able to connect with people
Yeah.
in healthy ways. But I'm guessing part of what's been happening is up to this point, his opportunities, his primary connection has been with his art, and
Yeah.
secondarily with humans, and he's developing those skills late, but hopefully better late than never, right?
Yeah. Man, we're gonna need more of you, Sam, in the MAFS community. All this compassion. We're usually just, you're bad, go away. So, okay, let's switch to Juan and Carla. They've taken a 180 after the show ended. I have no idea what is going on right now with all the back and forths and tell alls and a secret that we don't know what's going on. But what was your, I mean, basically, we all thought they knew the connection wasn't there. They decided to focus on business and just big up themselves in that way. But what's your take on the whole thing, on the whole why it didn't work? Are you one of the people who think it might have worked, or did you see them and do you just think, nah, this was DOA and is never or was never going to work?
Yeah, never gonna work. No chance.
Okay.
um, I think that Carla was not Juan's type physically or personality wise. I
Hmm.
think Juan might have been Carla's type physically, and if Juan had pursued Carla differently in a way that the men who were attracted to her, I'm sure, pursue her,
Yeah.
it might have ended differently. But it just came down to Juan. Carla wasn't Juan's type.
Yeah. And I want to point out to the listeners that you did call it because before we had the conversation was before he actually revealed that she wasn't his type physically. You had said that. And I mean, we had known that he said he had dated predominantly white people. And we didn't know the other part where he said he just liked them thicker and he wanted boobs. We didn't know all of that. But Juan is giving us way too much right now. So, yeah, so that was it. But sometimes, we don't always date or end up with types that you have in your head. I guess I think there's a danger to this is my type and that is all. Like I think you can miss out on things. So that's why I thought they could have worked. Yes, they may not have she may not have been his type, but maybe they could have found commonality or anything, but I think maybe he just shut down and wasn't even open. I don't know if it was a case of he shut down or she kept giving him more proof that this is not, going to work out. And then that was it.
Yeah, to your point, I think if she had not been physically his type, but her personality had been his type, like he had been attracted to her
Hmm.
romantically as a human, I think he would have given her more leeway. But I don't think
Hmm.
her personality helped anything as far as what he was looking for.
Okay. So I think something that Juan and Carla kind of you resonated with was maybe you said some internalized bias that maybe you socialized into and you had to work through. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. So I grew up in the Toronto area, which is very multicultural, and I have a story that now as an adult I found is very common amongst Black men who were nerdy, which is a bit of rejection, experiencing rejection from Black women and experiencing a lack of connection with Black women. So from the ages of,
Oh.
let's say, 5 or 6 to 18, I thought two things. I thought, hey, Black women weren't into me because I was too nerdy. I didn't have nice shoes. The way I dressed, the way that I spoke, I didn't have any swag, right? And the Black women that I saw around me were going for guys with swag, and they weren't, the way that they were relating to me didn't make me feel desired, right?
Mm-hmm.
Conversely, I also saw the Black women. I was living in a working poor kind of area, going to school with people who were a little on the lower end of the economic spectrum, and the Black women I saw, like I profiled them as ratchet, or as like they're too into appearance, too into hair, like too harsh, all the negative stereotypes that people still speak about Black women, that are still associated with Black women today. And that was genuinely, again, how I didn't, that was how I felt. So I would have preferred to be with any other race than Black women up
Mm-hmm.
until age 17, 18.
So just to clarify, just for listeners out there, you're not saying like it was right or anything. It's just how you felt at that time. Like, was it for sure, or do you think you were projecting, like you were being rejected? Do you know, like for a fact that that was why you were being rejected, or to you, you just decided that that was the reason why you were being rejected because you didn't have nice shoes or because you didn't have swag? Do you think it could have been anything else besides that?
Yeah, I think what was actually happening, and that's thank you for bringing that up, and so that I can make that distinction. I think that was what I felt at the time. That was what 7-year-old or 12-year-old Samuel felt, right?
Yes.
By 18, that wasn't my viewpoint anymore. I was able to have my eyes open. But what I think was happening was I was listening to, as we do when we have internalized bias, the loudest
Mm-hmm.
voices in the room, right?
Mm.
So the black women that were the most prominent, were the most popular, were the most outgoing. Those are the ones who and this happens regardless of race. We're going for the guys with the most swag, the guys with the most confidence, the guys with the most social equity or social capital.
Mm.
So I was ignoring, I was overlooking that there was plenty of a gamut of black women, just like a gamut of people of any race or any culture or any gender, who have
Mm-hmm.
a variety of different feelings, right? So some women for sure love swag and shoes. Some women um, would have loved and have loved black
Yeah.
women, everything that I was bringing to the table, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, I just had that negative bias because I was listening to the loudest voices who were more geared towards a certain aesthetic, a certain presentation
Okay.
in
Yeah.
the circles that I was in. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to put that out there because sometimes it could be someone could be presenting themselves as low confidence and not even know what they're exuding, like, nonverbal communication. And that may be the reason where someone is like, I don't want to be with someone who's projecting that. But then we tell ourselves anything. And this is besides even your story. We can create any narrative that we want to justify whatever it is that we're feeling. And,
Hmm.
we're like, no, it's because this. Oh, it's because I'm poor. It's because, but it's overlooked because maybe I wasn't making conversation. Maybe because my nose was buried in a book when everybody else was socializing and I wasn't making an effort or doing anything. And it's just easier to blame everybody else. Kind of like what Ikechi was doing. Like, no, it's
Right.
because you're this, or it's because of that. So just wanted to make that distinction. So, it's not like that's what you still believe in. That's it right now.
Yeah. 0%.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I support. Did marry, would marry. Love black women. Like my opinion has changed completely. I would also just add that I um, my experience was couched because of things like um, internalized bias. I didn't see that I was profiling black women, but the reality was that all women, like whether they were Sri Lankan women or Persian women or white women,
Yeah.
some of them weren't going to be into me, and some of them might have been open to a
Yeah.
conversation in that direction, right? So
Yeah.
I was looking at black women and being like, oh, these women are this because of the tendency that we can have to group people
Hmm.
together, especially people who are ethnic minorities or have been marginalized, and to take a sample group and say this is how they feel, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, like the reality was that black women, white women, Chinese women, all the different cultures and races, some of them would have been open to who I was, and some of them were not going to be. So I made a box and put black
Yeah.
women in them, which was absolutely inaccurate and not fair. So,
Okay. I'm glad you made the turnaround, Sam.
right?
Okay, let's talk about Camille and Thomas, the only successful couple that's on there. And what were your thoughts on them?
Cute. Cute. Again, relating to Thomas as not having the most swag in the world at certain points in my life.
Can I
Um,
interject? I
yeah.
always say that I feel like Thomas has swag. I know everyone argues against me. The Where Are They Now solidified this for me. I'm like, I don't see what y'all are seeing. I see Thomas's swag.
Is
I
the swag
do.
in the room with us right now? Like,
I'm just saying, I don't care. Nobody sees it, but I do. I don't know what that says about me, but I do.
I think you said you were also into Alan, right? A little bit.
No, okay. Don't put me on the spot with Alan. I just really liked him as a
Okay,
person. I just thought yes. All right.
that's fair.
So what were your continued thought? The lack of swag, as you said, for Thomas.
Like when I think of swag, I think of the confidence with which somebody speaks
Hmm.
and the presence that they have. Dressing is part of it. I think he's in good shape, but I think his presence in the room is the biggest thing that I think represents a lack of swag. No shade, Thomas, if you ever hear this. Like I love you. You're great. Um, but yeah, when I can see what Camille was perhaps longing for as somebody who grew up, in urban areas and looking for somebody who carried themselves with a little bit more suaveness and presence.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, there's not really much to talk about them. Their biggest issue was the cultural background, which they solved. And then Camille just wanted him to take the lead. But we can't tell if it's because they just met each other, they're still feeling each other out. It's kind of like a lot to take on at the time, or if that's just his personality. Because as with all things, marriage is an evolution, give it time and all that. So, hopefully they're still together. So, I think maybe they've solved that. They've moved into a new apartment. So, you know, that's it for
Yeah.
them.
Prayers up for
Yeah.
them. I think my only thought was that I get why Camille would want him to take the lead, but some men are
Mhm.
just not wired that way, right? And I think
Mhm.
I just hope that he's able to grow in that respect, which I'm sure he can,
Yeah.
and that she's able to be content, even if he never gets to the point where like he's as much of a leader as she thought she would marry.
Yeah. Okay. So now watching this whole season, what did you say? I think you said your mom had like a comment between the difference between MAFS and a traditional arranged marriage. What would you say is the difference between that? Matchmaking and traditional arranged marriage.
So my mom and I, yeah, we were maybe 12 episodes in, and I think at the time David and this was before David and Madison. So
Mhm.
David and Michelle were struggling. One and everyone was struggling basically. Some
Mhm.
the only people who had consummated the marriage were Thomas and Camille.
Mhm.
And my mom made a comment which I thought was really telling, and I agree with. She's in her 60s. She's seen arranged marriages across cultures. In Trinidad and Tobago, where she's from, there's a high population of African slave descendants and a high population of Indian indentured worker descendants. So
Yeah.
there's a kind of a gamut of cultures,
Mhm.
and yeah, she's seen a lot of arranged marriages, and her comment was, "This is not a real marriage. If this is a real marriage, they would just try the physical stuff and they'll make that work." And I thought about it and I agreed wholeheartedly because I think that, again, Pastor Cal and the experts they're kind of talking around the issue, but
Yeah.
potentially if Juan and Carla started, doing the deed,
Yeah.
if I don't think it would help David and Michelle, but maybe. Well, but I think the biggest example might have been Alan and Madison because I think her
Mostly,
biggest
yeah.
her biggest hurdle was I'm just not attracted to you. But
Mhm.
if those the chemical experiences that come with physical intimacy
Mhm.
can change the way you feel about somebody. It changes it outside of marriage. So how much more if you already have a degree of respect for this person or desire for this person, but just you're not feeling it physically. The chemicals are saying no. I
Yeah.
think that taking that step can change things. And I think in traditional arranged marriages, the expectation is that they're going to have sex, whether or not they end up initially attracted to each other when they first see each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think so. I agree with my mom in that might have made things very different for some of the couples. Maybe not, but you never know.
But chicken or the egg, how do you start to have sex with someone that you're not attracted to? Where do you even begin with that?
I just think that people have been doing it for generations. I think it's like especially for women, and I'm not advocating for this,
Yeah.
but I think that there's been an exchange of a power dynamic or an exchange dynamic where women have married men who have given them the opportunities that they're looking for,
Mhm.
and men have married for physical attractiveness. So I think there's a history of women, and again, I'm not saying this is what I want to continue, but there's a history of women being like, this guy is maybe not my physical ideal, but part of what needs to happen is me to be intimate with him. And I think in a marriage, there's an element of that in a real marriage. There's an
Yeah.
element of that that says, right now our marriage is not what I want it to be, but this is my spouse. So depriving us of intimacy is not going to help our marriage heal.
Mm.
Entering into intimacy, whether I feel like it or not, I think that's part of a healthy marriage. To be honest, I don't think I'm not advocating, to be clear, for
Yeah.
somebody demanding that out of their spouse, But what
Yeah.
I am saying is an internal locus that says, I've made a commitment to this marriage, and part of marriage is intimacy. And if I lean into that, it's probably going to be a healing salve to some of the things that we're experiencing.
Yeah, may or may not be. Because I think we've had a couple Atlanta season again where it wasn't happening. They did have sex and it just didn't make things better. So there is that. So, okay, now that you've watched this, are you inclined to watch another season, to watch old seasons, or did you have questions about the show itself or things you think they could have done better on?
Yeah, good question. It's long. I wish it wasn't so long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've been
I feel
begging for
this.
that.
That's honestly the biggest reason that I might not watch again, because
Yeah,
20 episodes, like, and some of them are hour and a half, hour plus,
2 hours.
2 hours, right? That's 40
Yeah,
hours that I'm giving. And I don't
yeah.
care about Juan and Carla going to yoga. And like, I don't need to be like, I have better things to do with my time. It's in the background. Maybe it's nice, but
Yeah,
I think that's my biggest critique. Like, can they find a way to bring this down to either moments of love or moments of entertainment?
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I'm not. This is not my background area, but I would love to have it cut more tightly, especially for our generation.
Yeah. The show started with 45 minutes without ads, and then somehow we crept our way up to 2 hours. So,
Wow.
and there's that. Okay. So, you're good with the experts. Did you think the experts added value to the participants?
I liked all three of them. I liked Pepper, Dr. Pepper. I liked Dr. Pia. I liked Pastor Cal.
Okay.
I would love to hear them unfiltered and not trying to push the entrance of the show. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
what kind of pastor is giving some of this advice? Like, it doesn't make no sense. And I don't think that's actually necessarily always how he would. I think he has to couch his actual personality with his job, like we all do. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, so I'm not mad at it. I liked them. I've heard good things about Dr. Pepper, but apparently she's in semi-retirement, is what I'm hearing from listening to you.
That's my opinion. Yes, she's not as, she's the only original expert that's been there from the very, very beginning till now. We've switched out
Okay.
through all of that. The only another difference too is like earlier in the seasons, the couples didn't used to interact.
Hmm.
I don't know how that will play out in today's world, but they didn't meet each other until like the reunion and stuff.
Huh.
They were all separated and no one knew what was going on. In the past, I have advocated for that. Like, let's go back to that because there's too many distractions. We've had seasons where people are comparing themselves to other couples. Like,
Mm,
oh, if you've gone this far, why haven't I gone this far? Where you might be okay working at your own pace, now being presented with other people. But now that I've watched so many seasons with them interacting, and also you do need that support because this is a very unique experience that they're going through.
mm.
I don't know if I don't know where I still feel they should be separated, but now I'm like, well, is that going to make for a very boring show?
Right.
That's that's where I waver now.
Do you feel like it's more entertaining now in this format when they get to mingle, or was it more entertaining then?
I think it's more entertaining now, but I think it's more of a sign of the times. Like as we, move on. When I watch the old episodes now, I'm like, oh gosh, this seems so archaic and so old.
Mm,
But now, and I think it's just more of the time. So, but I think that's why I'm excited when it goes to Peacock to see what changes and what things, they're gonna do. Hopefully, like you said, make it down to 1 hour. Nobody needs 2 hours of
right.
this. So yeah. Okay, so this has been fun. Do you have any last thoughts about the show, about the couples, or anything that you'd like to mention before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I feel like I've been gracious towards the contestants in this game show and harsh towards the show. And really, like, I get it. Like, I actually thought the show was very entertaining. I thought it got better as time went by. I thought they played certain things perfectly. I like a lot of the decisions they made. So
Mhm.
I do like. I might watch it again, and I thought I enjoyed watching it this season. Right, I watched a few episodes and couldn't stop. So I think there's a lot of value in what the show does. I think,
Yeah.
Camille and Thomas clearly have found something beautiful that they maybe would not have found otherwise, right? And
Mm,
that's really special. So in real life, relationships work sometimes, and most often they don't work. I think that was mirrored on this show, but a show that can both provide entertainment and provide the potential for love, I think, is a worthy endeavor. So I'm really grateful that I came across MAFS and your podcast, which helped me process the grief and the anger and the tears and the joy that I was experiencing every week. So,
Thank you. Okay, so before we go, can you wait? I should ask you, would you go on the show? Maths?
no, because marriage means a lot to me. I'm not saying it doesn't to the people on the show,
Yeah.
but I need more data and more information before I make a commitment like marriage because I don't want to get married and get divorced again. Like that's not an
Okay.
option for me. So I would
Okay.
prefer to take my time. That was the biggest thing with my marriage that I wish we did differently is I wish we didn't get married in 7 months. I wish we took time to get to know each other and get to know ourselves and see what came out and work through that stuff.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All
Mm.
right. Can you share with people where they can find you?
Sure. So you can find the podcast that we've been talking about. It's called Sam and Jen with a G got divorced. Sam and Jen got divorced, and that's available everywhere. YouTube, Spotify. If you Google Sam and Jen got divorced, all one word, you'll find us. If you want to follow more of my journey personally, I'm most active on Instagram, which is Samuel the Connector is my handle. Samuel the Connector. Yeah.
Okay. And you know where to find me, guys. It is Alta Call Maps, ALTARCALLMAFS, handle on Instagram, handle on Twitter, handle on Blue Sky. And if you want to send me an email, just at gmail.com. If you want to chat about any show, the Patreon has an active chat. You don't have to be a paid member, you can be a free member. And I'll be there to answer any questions that you guys have. So until next week, guys, talk to you then. Bye.